to his current residence in Plano, Texas. Ron has traveled to 73 countries among 6 continents in his work as a petroleum engineer with the Amoco Oil Company, Phillips Petroleum, and Anadarko Petroleum, among others. Searching for new oil deposits, finding ways to get the oil out of the ground, and processing it once it was removed. During his career, and I'd love to see him comment on where it's going today, but during his career, he notes in the information that he gave us that he saw the price of oil move from $1 a barrel all the way up to $13 a barrel. Now, how he explains the $100 a barrel today, well, I'll leave that up to him. Ron earned degrees from the Ohio State University and Texas A&M before beginning his overseas work as a petroleum engineer for Amoco. His primary focus involved exploration, drilling, and the production of oil. His leadership and expertise led to drilling underwater wells in Australia, which at that time were the deepest underwater wells in the world. His leisure time has allowed him to pursue interests in sailing, fishing, and scuba diving at many of the overseas locales where he and his family resided. It is my pleasure to welcome this evening from Plano, Texas, RJRundt, who will share his stories of his life and adventure.
Excuse me a moment while I get this. Now I'm ready. What time did we get out? First, I'd like to thank the person that told me to get the cherry pie before everybody else did. And I still didn't make it first to the table. I was about 4th or 5th. And it was a good pie, cherry berry. If you didn't get some, you missed it. I'd like to recognize the work of the committee. I think it's a fantastic effort. Fully supportive of the work that's done here. I found out about it through Dick Odo. I actually was doing some genealogy and had been in touch with Dick, and that started our communication. But I already had one of his books and read a lot of his articles in the paper. So I appreciate the time to come here today and the honor. It is an honor to be here. I'd like to tell you how I got there from here. 1959, my wife Tony and I graduated from Bellevue High School. She was a Hasselbach, and I was a Ron. Her dad was Deli, ran Hasselbach and Paul, Hasselbach Grocery, Hasselbach gas station. My dad worked on the nickel plate, was a fireman, and later in life worked for the United Transport Union as a lobbyist in Columbus, and also had served on a special commission for President Kennedy regarding the 4 crude laws that were quite controversial at that time. I think that's in the 60s. In 1956, there was a movie with James Dean, Rebel Without a Cause. And I referred to this yesterday because I think it sort of set the tone for the people that came in the late 50s and the 60s. Rebel Without a Cause, according to Google, search for meaning in life, searching for a better way to do things. And really was the first thing that seemed to be examining women's issues. So we were part of a generational movement that saw beyond just our front door. we saw there were things that needed to be changed, that there were other ways to do things. While attending college, Tony went to Lake Erie College in Painesville. Her junior year, she got to go to Germany, studied for a semester in Germany. And when she came back, she said, "Man, there's a whole world out there." I thought, well, that sounds like fun. I'd sure like to see it. I worked with a fellow whose brother was a petroleum engineer, worked in Venezuela. He was an American. Took his family and his kids. They hopped on a banana boat, and that's how they got to Venezuela. They were there on a 3-year contract. And at the end of 3 years, they got 90 days off. And they paid him $25,000 a year. That was a lot of money in the 1950s. That sounds like fun. I'd like to do something like that. I started out at Penn College. I had a few problems with priorities. The beer was good and the times were fun, and I decided I would do better at Ohio State, so I transferred from Penn, Cleveland State University. Not to disparage them at all. So we went to Ohio State, and I graduated with my Bachelor of Chemical Engineering in 1965. Our junior year, we took a tour, and we spent about 90 days on the road, traveling throughout Pennsylvania, New York, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, looking at all the places chemical engineers might work. Truth of the matter is, I didn't see one I liked. And I've only got 1 year to go. My senior year, I took an elective, a technical elective in Petroleum Engineering. And I thought, well, that really sounds like fun. So when we graduated, my wife and I packed up and went to Corpus Christi, Texas, and a summer job working for ARCO in the oil fields there. And my first exposure, and by golly, it was fun. We enjoyed it. So we went on to Texas A&M. I was working on a MS in chemical engineering with a minor in petroleum, and Tony had the opportunity to go to graduate school, and she got her master's at the same time. We graduated together from Texas A&M. We interviewed companies that offered us international opportunities. I wanted to be in petroleum engineering, but I didn't not consider chemical engineering. But chemical engineering just didn't have those opportunities to move around, travel, and see the world. Petroleum engineering did. And so I went to work for Amoco, did 2 years training in Louisiana, Lafayette, and New Orleans, and then went on to Chicago. While in Chicago, the company asked me to go to Tulsa and work with some of our scientists down there to build the first computer model of the El Morgan field. The El Morgan field was a 1 billion barrel oil field out in the middle of the Gulf of Suez, off the coast of Egypt. And we built a model that took one run was 4 hours. That's a long time. We didn't debate it in a matter of minutes, but each run took 4 hours. Great big trays full of IBM data cards. And after running about 250 cases, studying this field, understanding its history and where it was going and what was making this reservoir work, we came up with a recommendation to install a water flood, which injects water into the bottom of the reservoir, helps maintain reservoir pressure, and helps the recovery of oil. Generally, can be expected to improve recovery by 40 to 50%. So now it's not a billion barrel field, it's 1.4, 1.5 billion barrel field. Well, I could sell that. I've run so many cases, studied them in so much detail that I could talk about it for hours. And so whenever they needed somebody to talk, they'd come to me and say, hey, we got somebody in from Egypt, somebody in here or there. Tell them about your model. How long do you want me to talk? And I could do that for half an hour or 2 hours, whatever they wanted to hear. And that impressed the people at Amoco, and I got good marks for that. And meanwhile, the company was looking for oil and gas around the world. They found oil in Trinidad, West Indies. Trinidad's the last island in the Caribbean chain. You see Venezuela from certain parts of Trinidad. And they called me in one afternoon and said, we'd like you to go down there and be our engineer. I didn't think I had a chance in the world. There were a lot of guys older, more experienced than I. And I called Tony and I said, how would you like to go to Trinidad? And she said, sure, where is it? Excuse me. So off we went. 3 weeks later, we were back. There was a Black Power revolution. The blacks had taken over the military. Black country. They'd taken over the military. Wanted to drive out the president who they thought was too liberal towards the whites. We were in some danger. We were still living in the Hilton Hotel. Machine gun fire going off outside our room one night. And they evacuated the women and children, and then stayed about 90 days till they came back when the situation, the revolt was quashed, and we went on with our lives, and it was fun. We got to know the people, we got to know their lifestyle, we got to travel around the Caribbean, even hit South America once on the way out. It was just a very, very rich experience. At the end of which Tony said, I don't care if I ever see another palm tree. And she repeated those words a few times. The county wanted me to go to work in research and development. Well, you didn't read my resume. I wanted to work international. So I ended up changing my job. I went to work for Phillips Petroleum Company, and they sent me directly to London, England. Off we went. Second daughter was just born. Lock, stock, and barrel, all our, everything except our car. Refrigerator, washing machine, the whole 9 yards. Got to England, there was a strike. General strike that went on for months and months. We couldn't bring our things in, so we lived in a hotel for, I think, 6 months. It was a long time. Until we could get our stuff out of customs, moved into our flat, and began our life in London. I was the African engineer. I handled all things that happened from an engineering standpoint in Africa. I had some oil fields to look after in Egypt. The company had a new operation in Ghana, West Africa. I had to go down there and help drill the first 3 wells. Spent a lot of time down there, eating such fun things as grass cutter. Never did find out what that beast was. It wasn't very good either. And a lot of time working on Nigerian projects. Phillips were partners with Egypt in Nigeria. spent a lot of time as a result with Adjuvant, their headquarters in Milan, Italy. That was a treat. Excuse me, all that good food, and Milan wasn't that far of a place to go each month for our technical meetings. During that time, I did a lot of economics, and we were just getting into programmable computers, and the company wanted us to support a negotiation team that was going to allow some oil and gas from another company to come into our pipeline system. And we had to do the economics on that. So another fellow and I developed our own scheme. We were looking for a different way to do things. Because everybody in the county told us it couldn't be done. And we figured out a way to do it with our little HP calculators. And we spent about a month in Oslo backing up this negotiation team, and that project finally happened because we could run our economics cases each night with our special methods that we had developed to be able to do things that other people said we couldn't do. That was what made the difference for me in my career, I think, was that I didn't consider that anything was undoable, that there might be, I always considered that there might be a better way to do. And this was one of the first things I got to do, to apply that sort of principle. Towards the end of our assignment in London, I got to work on the Ekofisk field. Ekofisk was another billion-barrel field that the company had discovered in Norwegian waters. And the company was planning a multi-billion-dollar development. We weren't sure that we had not over-designed the facilities, and so we had an optimization team to study each aspect of this development project and decided, did we need to put in those last bits of equipment? Did we need to run these pumps? How could we improve our capacity? And we did. And we finished that work, got famous doing that too. And then we went to Norway. At the end of that, they told me, you're going to be the chief drilling and production engineer. This is my lifetime goal. When I started working, I thought if I could ever be the chief engineer on a big project, I'll be there. And here I was 35 years old, and I was going to be the chief drilling and production engineer. We were down with some friends in Kent, went out in the afternoon picking berries with our dogs, and came back and turned on the TV, and there was one of these wells blowing out 25,000 barrels a day into the North Sea. Helicopters circling overhead, taking live pictures of this blowout going on. That was my stuff. And it was Sunday evening, Monday I got to work, my boss said, get over there. So I went over, and the guy who was chief engineer at the time said, man, am I glad to see you. I've been in bed since Friday morning. And he went home and went to bed for 2 days. And we had to work on solving that problem. When we did, we solved the problem. We fixed it. It took about a week. Had to bring in Red 8 Air and his blowout team of blowout specialists. And when it was all done, the company wanted to continue drilling and producing from the same facilities at the same time, simultaneously. My predecessor had written a 4-volume set of books on how he was going to do this and justify it to the government to get permission to drill and produce simultaneously. that was my job now, was to get that permission from the Norwegian government. And it didn't go very well at first. And then we took a look at it and said, there's got to be another way to do this. We ended up with a 2-page procedure. 2 pages. From 4 values, which was just a rough draft, down to 2 pages. Made it much simpler, clearer. It became the standard for the North Sea. It became an international standard. I've had correspondence with people in India who wanted to know about our methodology. I can tell you that 2 years ago when BP had that blowout going on in the Gulf of Mexico, they did not follow the standard. Those sorts of things are the things that I did that got me notoriety. But some of these jobs burned me out. Working in Norway was 180 to 100 hours a week. And there was no overtime pay. It was hard on the families because they didn't get to see me very much. And so that's where I have to give credit to my wife, because she, held the family together. How am I doing on time? We okay? I'll wind it up quickly. 2 jobs later, we were in Aberdeen, Scotland. I was the manager of a project, $1.3 billion project, to produce 100,000 barrels of oil a day out of the North Sea, and do all the exploration drilling for Phillips Petroleum Company in the North Sea. We had up to 8 rigs running simultaneously. It was a busy, busy time. It was probably our most fun, our best assignment. Because I was the head guy there for Phillips, we got invitations to meet a lot of people, do a lot of things. And on one occasion, we got invited to have tea with Queen Elizabeth at Hollywood Palace in Edinburgh. And my secretary says, well, you can't drive there and park your car. You have to go in a limousine. So she rented a Bentley for us, a big, huge Bentley limousine. And we were told what to wear. So we had to wear gloves and a hat. And I had to wear a morning suit. And as we rode down, I think it was Princess Street, here we are in our limo going down to the palace, and people on the sidewalk just assumed you were somebody, you know, and they're all waving at you. And we did the kind of rival wave thing, and we got to the palace, and beautiful tropical garden in the mostly the ruins of Hollywood Palace. And we were walking around arm in arm, which is what everybody else was doing. There was some music band playing in the background, kind of a military sort of band. Everybody strolling around, looking at the flowers, waiting for the Queen to come out and have tea with us. And I said, can you believe 2 kids from Bellevue are here? So we're doing this. It's incredible. And that's kind of the way the career went. I've actually had dinner with one president at his house. He was the president of Eritrea, which was an East African country. He was a rebel who had fought to overthrow the communist dictator. And we sat on the floor, because that's what you did in that part of the world. Sat on the floor and drank some mead, and then he brought out some Scotch whiskey, drank a little Scotch whiskey, and he talked about the good old days when he was a rebel fighter. Those are experiences hardly anybody ever gets to have. And we've had a lot of them. And here we are, we're back in Bellevue. We still come back for our class reunions. A little disappointed that this was not in the summertime, so we could have brought the grandkids with us, because they think Bellevue is like Disneyland. We talk about Bellevue all the time, all the good times we had, and it would have been fun to be here with the grandkids, go over to Cedar Point and drive out and see Seneca Caverns. I don't know if Blue Bowls even open, but we had to do some of those things. Well, it'll happen. It's just not going to happen right now, because they're all in school, same as the kids are here. I think that's about what I really need to say. I can tell shaggy dog stories all day long. It was a rich and rewarding career. I loved every day of it. I had a profession that was fun. It was challenging. I could do the things I wanted to do. I could help the environment, which I had a very large impact on environment and safety in my years working offshore, particularly. Society change. My favorite story, and I'm going to tell you this because it's my favorite story. There was a fishing village near a pipeline station in Yemen. It was on a peninsula named Ras Isa. Isa in Arabic is Jesus. And also on up the coast is Ras Muhammad. Some of you may know it. It's a famous diving resort named after the head of Muhammad. This was Ras Isa, the head of Jesus. And this is where our station was on that peninsula. It was dry, it was barren. There was a fishing village there of maybe 200 people. Every year they had a cholera outbreak and 15 or 20 people died. We had some material that came in off of our terminal. And basically it was oily sand that settled out in the bottom of our tank, so we had to clean it out annually. And when we were done, we had 10 or 15 truckloads of this sand. The company had always disposed of it by just taking it to the city dump. Strictly speaking, it was toxic. Shouldn't be in there. So I got to stop that. We spread it out on the ground and let it evaporate so that it didn't bother anybody, make any kids sick. But I hired the people from this village to come over with picks and shovels. We provided the picks and shovels, and we paid them $5 a day, which was gigantic wages for those people, to turn those waste materials into highways, roads. The biggest problem they had was water. And here's our station. We produce fresh water from seawater. So we put a tap outside the fence. Couldn't tolerate having an insider fence. It was too much of a hazard. And so every day, there'd be kids out there with their donkeys and carboys, gas cans, milk cans, all kinds of cans, filling them up with water. And there was no one to call on. So now these people had earned some money, bought some cement, got a machine, made some cement blocks, built houses, and they had good water supply, and the fish were still there. Life was good, and the cholera was done. I felt like I had done my part. And thanks for having me. Thanks for listening to me. I'm sure
of 19